Hi everybody, this is Gijs again with another review, and this time it's not going to be one of a lightweight tent. No, this is the Tentipi Safir 7CP. So if you're interested in teepees and not so lightweight camping, watch the video. The Tentipi Safir 7CP. As you can see, it is a big package and it is a heavy package. The whole tent weighs about 14 kilos. But bear in mind that the Safir 7CP fits 6 to 8 adults sleeping. So if you take the, let's say, person to weight ratio, it's not that heavy at all. Now let's have a look inside the bag and find out why it is this heavy. Now you know where the weight all comes from. Now let's pitch the tent. And to pitch the tent, Tentipi normally gives a very nice, well, sort of instruction manual. So to tell you how to pitch a Tentipi tent. And it looks somewhere like this. Because my tent is a tent that I borrowed from the Dutch shop Moose Camp. And they forgot to put the instruction manual in there. So that's why. But what Moose Camp makes is this pole plate, and it's, let's say, a development from the original one from Tentipi, which is made out of fabric, but this one is made out of wood. And well, I'll show you how this works, because the pole plate does its job with a piece of wire, and I will show you from above how this works. All I have to do with this pole plate is to find a nice flat spot that's around me, of course, and I take one of the big pegs, you know, these are serious pegs, put them in the middle, and as you can see, all the lines on here, they go to all the points where you have to place a peg. Put this one into the ground, and then I'll put my ribbon around it. And as you can see, maybe this is where the loop is that goes around the peg. Put it in the ground firmly, and then on the ribbon there is a 5 and a 7, and somewhere there's a 9, and then there's probably a 15 as well. But I have the CP7, so all I have to do is put the ribbon in the, well, the direction I need to place the peg, and the peg needs to be at the place where I have the 7. It's as easy as that. So, and with the pegs in place, for me it's now very easy to pitch the tent. And now there's only one thing left for me to do, and that is to put the ground sheet in there, or so the floor, which helps of course from my stuff getting wet and dirty, and also prevents condensation. And this is quite a simple method. Construction wise, the floor is attached with, well, these kind of hooks, which are not really hooks, but I don't know how you call them in English. Then the tent itself goes underneath this, and the floor goes on top of it. So this is a waterproof construction. We had one flooding in Sweden, and we did not have any water inside the tent, so it might not look that great, but it really works. And now it's time to put all the tension on all the spanners, on all the adjustment straps. If you do this before you put the flooring in, it's almost impossible to put the flooring in, so do this afterwards. The Safir has got 3 vents. All Tentipi tents, I believe, have 3 vents on the lower side. this prevents rain from getting underneath this, and of course the guidelines help it to keep the ventilation open. Because this is the one, I'm not using my Tentipi with an inner tent, so inside here where the ventilation is open there's a lot of mesh to prevent mosquitoes from getting in. Okay, I talked about the ventilation openings on the lower part of the tent, but a good thing about a teepee is the point, because the point is actually a head, and the head has a way of ventilating the system. So you get air from low, because of its warmth inside the tent, the air travels into, well, let's call it a chimney. If I open it and see how this one opens, I have got some ropes on the inside, and now I have to pick one. You see, now, hello, you can see my hand? That's where it's open, and I can open it all the way around if I want to. So that is a great way of ventilating a tent. But you see this little, well, funny part. That's the funny part for winter or cold days. And tonight it's going to be a cold night. So I'm going to put my stove in there. And this is where the chimney is. So, and now I have a stove in my tent with a chimney. And it's going to be a cold night. So let's start a fire. Well, as you can see, the tent is set. My stove is here, it's burning. On the floor I always put a cowhide, because if you open it, it prevents maybe sparks from getting into the ground floor itself. And there's the place for my two girls, for me and my wife. They will be arriving shortly, so I'm pretty happy that I got it all sorted. And somebody is hunting, I don't know if you heard the shot. So I think it's going to be a wonderful night. And tomorrow I'll tell you more about the tent itself. Well, good morning to all of you. As you can see, the weather is not as good as it was yesterday, and it is quite chilly. It's about 5 degrees now. But as you can see, I lit the stove already, put the kettle on. My two daughters are still in their sleeping bags. They're reading. My wife already left when it was still pitch black, because she just has to go to work. That's the good thing about camping in the Netherlands. You can camp and still go to work. So now let's continue with the review. So while the water is boiling, let me explain you a bit more on the inside of the tent. As I said before, it's a tent that sleeps 6 to 8 persons. Well, we are a family of 4, 2 kids. If you are a family of 5 or 6, that will fit easily. The tent is spacious enough. There's a, you know, the distance, the diameter of the whole tent is 4.5 meters. So there's a lot of space. And especially because it's so high, it's 2 meters and 70 centimeters high. So I can stand upright, really tall persons. If you are a tall person, this is really the tent you should consider to buy. Then, while the kettle is almost boiling, the tent is made out of a polyester cotton fabric. It's a 285 grams per square meter, and that explains a bit why the Safir 7CP is such a heavy tent to carry. The big benefit of a polyester cotton mixture is the fact that it breathes. So what you have in normal tents that are made out of polyester and nylon with a silicone or a polyurethane coating on the inside to make them waterproof, you don't have that in this kind of fabric. The fabric itself is waterproof because it's a very close weaving, but because of the cotton it can breathe. So the humidity from, well, our breathing in the night and the cold temperatures outside that condensates normally against the fly sheet, well, with a breathable fabric it goes outside, and that makes the comfort in a tent way better. It also makes it a bit warmer. If you want to keep it really warm and you don't have a furnace, for example, then you can also attach a inner tent in the Tentipi. I don't do this normally because it makes the tent a bit smaller, and well, we use a Tentipi most of the times in the winter times or in the colder days, and then you don't need the protection from an inner tent against mosquitoes, because that's, if you travel to Scandinavia in the summertime, that might be a good idea, but we don't need the inner tent for this reason. Then when you use a stove like I do, you have to keep the ventilation open at all times, because the furnace, the stove, it takes oxygen and that comes from the outside. So there's a ventilation opening on that side, ventilation opening there, and there's one here, and of course there is a lot of mesh and a zipper if you want to close it if it really gets cold. Then here we've got the attachment for the or the extension for the opening in the top ventilation system. It's just pulling ropes and it opens. And I'll show you a bit later how that looks there. But beware that if you use a stove, this is of course a polyester fabric, plastic that melts if it gets too close to this, so beware of that. Now let's have a look up there. Well, as you can see, there is a mesh in the top that connects to the pole if the chimney is not there. You have to be a bit aware that the fabric is not touching the chimney itself, because this is also very hot. As you can see, there is a double layer. This one is the outside, this is the inside. I will not touch this one. This prevents the fabric, also the fabric of the tent itself, from burning, because there's a lot of air between this. Now you can also see that there is light coming through this. Yes, this is a hole, so if it rains you will get some rain into the tent, but as long as the stove is burning, well, that will evaporate very, very fast, because it will land almost on the stove itself. Then there is this rope I was talking about, how to open. I will pull it here so you can see what's going on. Where is it opening? Now it's opening there. And it's easy because it works from elastics on the outside that pulls it back again. So this is a very convenient system. And since I'm standing, this is where my hand is, and I'm 1 meter and 69 centimeters, so this is a tent you can dress and undress standing up if you want to. Well, that's basically about the ventilation system and the way how you put the chimney through the tent fabric. The stove that I'm using is not the Tentipi stove, because the people who lent me this Safir, they gave me this one. It's a Gijs stove. It's made out of stainless steel and it's a really neat design and it functions really well. What I especially like is the fact that there is a little window there, so you can still see the fire, and that makes it very cozy. The Gijs stove itself retails for 320 euros, and that sounds like a lot of money, but it's even a bit more expensive, because what doesn't come with the package is the spark arrestor that's on top of the chimney that prevents spark from maybe getting into your tent fabric or into the forest. What's also not in the package is the tent protector. That's, let's say, the second layer of pipe that protects the tent fabric from touching the normal pipe. And what you should do if you buy this is also buy a, well, like I did, a cowhide to prevent sparks that fall out maybe when you put some wood in there. You need a cowhide, or you do a fire retardant mat underneath it from Gijs stove, and that retails for 49 euros and 50 cents. Then if you want to put this all together, you can put it in a bag, and also that's available from Gijs stove, and that retails for 49 euros and 95 cents. At home I use a old Hellsport stove. It's a bit bigger, and I've used the ones from Tentipi as well. They're also bigger, but this one, it's a really clever design, because, well, I can do this. You see the water is boiling now, and I can put this one over there. This makes it like a folding stove. And let me get that one from that side. And now I have a sort of a tray. I can also put this one on the side and use it like a tray, like this, and maybe I can dry some socks over there. Now there are, for the Gijs stove, there's a lot of accessories for sale. I believe from ovens that you can put onto here. So it's really a neat system, and I don't think that all the other manufacturers do the same quality of building a whole system, building a kitchen for your Tentipi tent. I didn't say too much yesterday on the floor that I'm using with the Tentipi. This is the Tentipi Comfort floor. It weighs around 1.4 kilos and it's a lightweight version, which is it's quite sturdy. It's not been damaged since the time that I tested. And it's got these zippers that are very clever. You can fold them to the side so you can have an entrance without getting onto the ground floor itself. There is also, the zipper goes all the way to the pole, and then to the pole there is a, well, let's say 50 centimeter zipper that way, 50 centimeter zipper that way, and 50 centimeter zipper that way. So you can open it up and you can put your furnace directly onto the ground if you want to. But it might be lightweight, it's quite, it's not that sturdy. So the guys who I borrowed this tent from, Moose Camp, they also gave me this one, just to show you guys. This is a Bisonil flooring. Bisonil is very, very sturdy. It's 100% waterproof and this will not get damaged very easily. But bear in mind that this one weighs 5 kilos and this is only the right part. And there is also another part, so together you're carrying 10 kilos extra. But if you are going to stay on one spot for a longer period, then this is really a good investment because it only costs 195 euros, while the ground floor, the comfort floor from Tentipi, retails for 300 euros. One of the things I like about Tentipi is the fact that they pay great attention to detail. For example, the guidelines. I'm not using them now because it's not windy enough, but when I want to repack my tent or want to store them, I've just got this elastic storage system for my guidelines. The big pro of this is the fact that if I want to pack my tent now, all my guidelines are in one place, and when I want to repitch the tent again, the guidelines will still be there, so they will not be tangled into each other. And that happens with a lot of tents that don't have these kind of storage systems. One of the most vulnerable parts of a tent is a zipper, and especially with a teepee you have a huge problem when the zipper breaks, because when this opens you got rain, wind, snow getting freely into the tent. Now Tentipi came up with this. They made a female connector on the one side and a male connector on the other side, attach them together, and when your zipper breaks you can still close your tent. Clever. On to the conclusion. How do I rate the Tentipi Safir 7CP? Well, I think it is a fantastic tent, but bear in mind that I'm a teepee lover. The weight of 14 kilos, well, it's quite logical if you take the amount of space in relation to the weight and of course the build quality and the chosen materials. The biggest pro is of course the cotton polyester fabric, because it breathes, and that means that the atmosphere on the inside is always very, very comfortable, and it doesn't matter if it's raining, snowing or if the sun is shining. The only small disadvantage I think is the ground floor, because it's not connected totally to the outside tent. So that means that small little animals can walk from outside into your tent. If you don't like this, then this is not your type of tent. As you might have noticed, I did not mention rain in relation to the entrance, because every time when it rains and you open the entrance, rain will get into your tent. Well, I don't think it's that big of a problem in this teepee, because you can open the zipper, you can fold the flooring away, and the rain will get into the ground and will go away. But Tentipi and the guys who lent me the tent, Moose Camp, are very clever. So they made a awning for the teepee, and you can connect it to the part up there, and with the awning there is of course no rain getting into the tent whatsoever, but that's an optional extra. Now let's start talking about pricing. The Tentipi Safari 7CP costs 1,840 euros. That's the fly sheet, the pole and all the pegs. Then you need to buy the flooring for another 300 euros. So for about 2,100 euros you got the set like I'm testing it here. That sounds like a lot of money, but if you take into account that this is a very well built tent, the quality is very high and it will last for years to come, well, it's totally not that expensive, and therefore I rate the Tentipi Safir 7CP at the full 5 stars. I hope you liked the video and that it was useful to you, and if it was, please give it a like or leave a comment below. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you've not done that already. I'm doing this work totally for free. I'm not being paid by manufacturers to make my reviews because I want to stay as an independent journalist, blogger, vlogger, whatever you like to call me. And if you subscribe to my channel, please follow me also on Instagram and like my Facebook page. Many, many, many thanks in advance. And for now, time for coffee. Ciao! That's why I like a stove in a tent. And if you really want the tent like I'm testing it here, then you will need the stove. Well, that will set you back another 500 euros plus, which is very expensive, but yes, I would spend it because it's a hell of a tent.